Pet Life Radio.
This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Hello, feline friends. This is Michelle Fern, your host on Cattitude. Today I have with me the author of a book that is unlike any other cat book you've ever read. I promise you. I've read so many. And this is unlike any other book I've ever read. And I'm really excited to introduce this author. We're going to do that as soon as we get back from this break. We'll be right back. You know how every house you go to has a certain smell? Like, you know, my grandmother's house used to smell like cooked cabbage all the time, kind of stinky. And I have a friend of mine, her house always smells like incense burning. I feel like I'm in a different country. It's very, exotic smelling. Well, that's okay. But one thing I don't want my house smelling like is a zoo. Because I have 3 cats and 2 dogs. And with 3 cats, you have a lot of litter boxes. I really don't want that litter box smell to greet you when you come into my house. So what I use is Arm & Hammer Clump and Seal. It seals and destroys the odor on contact for a 7-day odor-free home guaranteed. So don't let your house smell like a litter box just because you have kitties. Get Arm & Hammer, Clump and Seal. Arm & Hammer. More power to you.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Cattitude, and I have with me today as a guest Justin Donner. He is the author of Ninja Cat, Whiskers of Choice, and Justin Donner is the author, and it is edited by his son, Corgan Donner. So welcome, Justin, and congrats on creating a highly unusual book about cats and other animals.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, first, how would you describe your book to people? Because it's not a typical type of book at all.
No, it's more like a kid graphic novel. We were really aiming for something that can set the tone for the entire series. So there will be more Ninja Cats to come. Part 2 is in the works already. And as the book grows, along with my son, then the illustrations will also get a little more detailed. And the content will also grow along with what my kid's going through, so it's stuff him and his friends can kind of refer to and learn about whatever is relevant for the age they're in.
Okay, and so how old was he when you did Whiskers of Choice?
10. He just turned 11, but he was 10 when we started working on it. So I asked him about, kid issues and things that he was interested in, and then sort of injected the finance because although he wouldn't admit that he was interested in it yet, I figured it was a good time to expose him to it and let him know about some of these things in the financial world that a lot of people don't get exposed to until at least young adulthood.
Yes, and that's very true. I mean, it talks about other things too in the book, but the fact that you brought up, it goes over finance, even compounding interest. And yes, I did say that, everyone, compounding interest in a cat book, but it makes sense because it teaches a good lesson, and it's good to learn that lesson when you're young because then you're better suited for when you do have the money, when you're adult, when all that comes into play, or even as a young person, if you have allowance or a little part-time job or something. So, but let's not get into all this. So how did you first come up with the idea of Ninja Cat?
Well, I'm an illustrator, always have been. My son loves cartooning and drawing with me too. So we have a cat. We got a cat, Lando, who is the inspiration for Ninja Cat, obviously, and just wanting to kind of integrate things in our life to make the story more compelling and have a little more meaning. As my son was getting older and I was itching to write another book, just all these things sort of came together, and it turned into a really good teaching opportunity and a creative outlet. And it was sort of a perfect storm of just a lot of things between my son getting older and learning how to read and write better and having a cat and, just looking for another creative outlet. Everything just sort of coalesced into this story, into this book.
Okay, and I think I know the answer to this, but this is the first Ninja Cat book.
It is.
Okay.
It is. And we're yep.
You have a huge cast.
Yeah. No, we went with a really big cast because we're trying to set the stage for the like a society, it's obviously animals that are walking around talking and playing video games, which isn't exactly realistic. But the metaphor is there for, different people, different backgrounds, different perspectives, different personalities, different communication styles, different emotional, behavioral approaches. Just all of that is much easier to, I think, tell stories through animals. So we wanted to get all those characters out there representing different types of people in society so that with these issues that are sure to come up as my son gets older, I can help him, address these things, expose him to some tough topics, and hopefully teach a thing or two using these characters to explain those. So we're really setting the stage with Ninja Cat for the future of the stories as these characters are more thoroughly developed. And like I said, when the novel gets a little more detailed, then those characters are really going to come to life more and are really going to be able to provide good examples of, situations that are going to come up inevitably that I've been through, we've all been through, but until you go through them, you often don't even know about them. So it's really about that exposure.
And I want to share with everyone listening that you don't just say, this is Lando, this is Skunk, this is Old School, you give little descriptions underneath, which is really cool. Like Rabbit, you have wants to be a chef. Or do you remember all these, or should you tell me?
Yeah, the characters I wanted to include a lot of traits and things that I knew about too.
Right, because they're not just, Rabbit, has a floppy ears and this and that. You have, that he wants to be a chef. You gave them all gave the characters a lot of character, a lot of descriptives that just made them, I guess, more realistic.
Yeah, and as the stories will develop, then like with, those traits, then there will be examples later, and even through the website, as that gets a little more developed, with it's a segue to nutrition tips or other health-related tips. So each of these characters with those traits allow me to then more vet those concepts and provide examples of certain behaviors through these, complex characters.
Very interesting and very clever. Very clever, because you're developing like a little world, and the character, really clever.
Yeah, but what I was thinking with that is that, whenever a parent talks to their kid, only so much really gets heard, right? At a certain point, It's sort of just blah, 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 parent talk. But when you have these characters, then I can refer back to them and mention when something comes up. Corrigan's even, said to me oh, that's like when, this happens with Ninja Cat, or that's like when Lone Shark, set these rates. And it's oh my gosh, these characters as a reference point really help drive home the ideas that the story is conveying.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to talk more about the lessons in the book and how did you come to put compounding interest in a cat book. We'll be right back.
I have 2 dogs, Sam and Bailey. Both are golden retrievers. Poor Sam, he was a mess. Always itching. His paws were soaking wet all day from just constant licking. He had bald spots on his back. I just don't like putting shots and steroids into your dog all the time.
DINOVITE.com. Dinovite is nutrition.
Probably 2 weeks after he started Dinovite, I started seeing great improvements. And today, 99% of his issues are non-existent. It's amazing stuff. Since Bailey has been 12 weeks old, he's been a Dynovite dog, and he has 0 issues today. He won't eat his food without Dynovite. When I get out the Dynovite, my dogs actually salivate, like I'm getting them a treat. They drool over it. Dynovite is the best thing you can do for your dog.
You won't believe how happy your dog will be.
I get my Dynovite from DINOVITE.com.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. We're listening to Cattitude, and I have with me my very special guest author, Justin Donner. He wrote, and his son Corrigan edited the book, and it's called Ninja Cat, Whiskers of Choice. And I think I really love the idea, Justin, that you're teaching these lessons. And it's like another way that you can teach your children. And like you were saying just before, how your son can relate better to the book than sometimes hearing the the parent. What made you decide to? Because this book discusses owing money and living within your means. Why you don't want to end up owing. And for most people, I think it's more credit card debt than loan sharks. And how interest compounds, and so how a small amount of money can turn into something that's 10 times that amount. So how did that idea come to you for this book?
Well, a lot of it's my own unfortunate experiences learning those things on the fly. I got my first credit card in college and did not really grasp how that played out. And all of a sudden you wind up owing nearly twice what you spent, and it's really unfortunate. I recently switched the last couple of years careers in finance now, and licensed. I have a trading license and advising license, and so learning more and more about the industry and the way that our economy operates both globally and domestically. The idea of physical money, saving money, simply adding up enough money to buy things is not really how the world works anymore. We're on a credit system, a loan system. You earn money, interest rates. If you're not investing, you're probably not going to have enough for retirement. You're not just going to be able to just go to work and save. Similarly, you don't buy a car or a house. You take out a loan. You take out a mortgage. You're always dealing with these interest rates, and it's kind of abstract. And if you're not exposed to it at a young age, I just feel like you're going to really have a hard time moving forward. And I think one need look no further than current, economic data and the amount of people who don't have anything really saved, who aren't prepared for retirement, who have as much money going out as they have coming in. And it's really becoming a world, or at least in the United States anyway, a really big problem that if is not addressed, it's looking like a pretty interesting economic future, to say the least, for the youth. I mean, I'm not exactly old, but I'm not young either at 39. And I know that, my son is going to need to get started, I think, sooner than even I did. I'm barely involved in saving up that nest egg and some of those other things where I feel like I'm, far behind given the 25-ish years until retirement. I mean, that's not that long to save up quite a bit. So I just wanted to make sure that that concept, that I'm, not only learning myself, but have lived through, is not new to my son when he finally moves out and starts getting his own things, getting his own money, saving, spending, all that.
And of course, for your son, but so true for so many other children out there and teenagers out there, young teenagers, and for just people in general, So
yeah, you shouldn't need financial licenses to understand it, but you kind of do. So I'm trying to really do my part to give back.
Well, I loved how it came about, and I also love that it's, talked about it's set in Financial District, New York City, right?
Well, actually, it's Minneapolis.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I know it. Look, yeah. Well, I mean, it's a little imagined, but it's that's where I live. I work downtown Minneapolis, and we actually have a little financial district down there too. So I sort of borrowed that, knowing people would probably get the familiarity from Wall Street, but it's all the same.
Yep. And then another thing besides that really important lesson and learning, this is cheap. I'm flabbergasted. You're teaching your son about finances at such an early age. And this is a basic lesson, don't spend more than you earn. Don't live paycheck to paycheck. I mean, I don't think he has a paycheck yet, but you have your, however he earns his money, you have your $10 allowance. Well, then you're not going to spend $40 this week. And if you want something, you save for it. That's a good lesson to learn, because if you don't learn it young, and I'm fortunate that my mother taught us to, pay off your credit cards right away, because the interest is always high, and that just stuck with me. And, but that's a good lesson to learn, because before you know it, you blink and how did that, $100 turn into $900, And it's crazy. So that's really cool in the book, and how you put it together and talk about it is, just very cool. I can't, very kind of Joe Cool kind of way. I can't think of a better word.
That's the kid editing. That's the kid editing right there, because I had to make sure, if it's not cool, a kid's not going to read it. So I had to make sure it had the pace that was flowing with him that he could maintain, where it didn't get too detailed. I mean, I know there's a couple parts with the compound interest. It's a little over his head for sure, but the way that the story, like you said, there's a lot going on, because I got to hold a kid's attention, and that's not easy nowadays. It's a distracting world. So his role in that is integral, and it's really cool. I'll be sure to share with him what you said. He'll be super proud.
Yep. And hope you have him listen. So I'm going to give him a shout out. Corrigan, you did a great job editing this book. And did he do all the graphics, most of them?
They're at a level he can draw. So what we did with a lot of the characters is I would ask him what, he thought a mole would look like with glasses on, or what a samurai rabbit might look like. And then he would sketch his version of it, and then I would use I have a Surface Pro with one of the styluses that's pressure sensitive. So I would take his pictures on paper, take a picture of it, upload it onto my computer, and then take that onto the graphics program I used and sort of trace over it and refine the images. So they are my drawings, but they're at a level that he can also draw. It's just a little cleaner when I polish them up like that. And then that's how we'll move forward, is with his drawings advancing, and then I'll sort of teach him, that drawing style, and then we'll just kind of keep going together. It's a great bonding opportunity too.
Great bonding opportunity and great bragging rights for him, because he could say he edited a book when he was 10. How many 10-year-olds can say that, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to show him that there's a lot of ways that you can do some pretty cool things besides just being an athlete or a rock star.
Right. And this is more realistic too, because there's only so many athletes and rock stars, and I won't share and movie stars, celebrities, and some are way overpaid. That's all I'll say. Okay. So let's, somebody had a quote once, and they said teachers should get paid, but athletes get paid. And then I thought that's pretty good, but never happened. It's supply and demand. You also made it all black and white. Not lawn drawings, but like you said, cartoon style, but not exactly. And you also say at the end, you could, draw your own characters, or you can color them in. Was that also for children to be, or, preteens and tweens and all that, and adults, get them more engaged in the book?
Yes, exactly. That was exactly what we were aiming for. And of course, Corrigan gave the thumbs up on that idea. He really liked that idea. So we wanted to make the book not so intimidating. You don't want to draw in a lot of books because you feel like you're ruining it. But this looks like more just an extension of your own drawings. And so I've got a few friends who let their kids go through it. And it is an engaging component to be able to just sort of draw along and just sort of enjoy the story and the characters, and maybe discover some artistic talent you didn't know you had, because you got that opportunity to just sort of get yourself. And, like I said, the style was intentional that way. With the program that I used to create it, it does allow for that kind of pencil drawing. It almost doesn't look like it's printed. It almost looks like It's just drawn on that page. So that's why we did that, to kind of encourage kids, like, go ahead and draw. It's okay. You're not ruining it. It looks like you already drew on it anyway.
Yes, it does. Exactly how you said it. It's so true. And that's Laredo on the back?
That's Lando. That is the real life
Laredo?
Lando. Yes, the real life Lando.
Lando
He's 4 human years old now.
4 human
but 4
years?
human years.
How many cat years? Oh, 4 human years, meaning 4 years old. Yeah, the conversion is not. They say for dogs, that rule of 7, but that's not accurate. And
it's sort of like a tapered scale where it's like the first couple years are 7, and then it's like 3 thereafter, something like that. So he's probably like 20.
Yeah, he's a young dude.
Maybe something like that. He's like a teenager.
Okay, one last thing before we tell everybody where you can buy it. You talked a little bit about black cats in the book, and I didn't even know that. Sorry guys, I have dogs too, but I didn't even know for dogs there's a Black Velvet Club. There might be that for cats too, that more people will buy, cats that are not black and dogs that are not black versus ones that are all black. And actually, I think it's in Asia, they think that black cats are actually good luck. So what made, or maybe I have my country wrong. It's Friday, people. So what made you bring in the black cat kind of concept there?
Well, I mean, I've lived in a lot of different regions. I grew up in Washington near the coast, and I lived in the city in Sacramento. I've lived in rural North Dakota, and now I'm in the city again in Minneapolis. And I've had a lot of friends from a lot of different backgrounds, and I have a master's degree in criminology, law, and society. And this concept of how we treat one another because of superficial prejudice is really strong. It's very in your face today in our country, and I wanted to address that and especially, I think this is maybe something that, it doesn't even matter where you're coming from, where we all have misconceptions about people based on nothing more than the color of your fur if you're a cat, and that's kind of silly. I feel like it's really not a way that we should still be thinking of one another. And so with animals, of course, it's a little easier to do something like this and have that very simple concept of like, a black cat, black is dark, black cats, Halloween, black cats and witches. We all know how that works. And I mean, we love our cat. Our cat's adorable. There's no way this cat has any bad luck. He's been nothing but good luck since we've had him. Like you said, other countries view it entirely differently. So it's really just a place of perspective in your own mind, in your own communities, about what do you determine is good or bad on a superficial level. Why is that superficial level so important in you prejudging something? So we want to keep that flow going, because I think that's something that especially kids, he's heading to middle school soon. I mean, if there's ever a time when you're going to get judged for what's on the outside, it's middle school. So I wanted to make sure that I got a good foundation for him and his friends, hopefully, and other kids, that, hey, just because you might hear that a black cat is bad luck doesn't make it true at all.
That is so clever and so lost for words there. You said it great. I mean, it's such an important concept to convey, especially when you can, communicate that as young as possible, because you're right. We judge each other based on looks, based on what kind of whatever things we have, how, expensive something all of that. And that's just wrong. So, yes.
Yeah, I think we'd be a lot kinder if we just tried to look past those things. And it's a great chance to just spend some time talking to my son. It seems to sink in more if we do it with a project. And the dream is that other kids, too, will be able to sit down with their parents and read it. And then it opens the door for all of these topics to be discussed in more detail as to your own family's values.
It's a great book. Now, this is the first in the series. Where can people find Ninja Cat Whiskers of Choice?
It's available on Amazon. You can also go directly to the website. It's ninjacatbook.com. There's links there right to Amazon also. It's available on Kindle, $9.99 for the paperback, and we are going to have another Kindle version soon with pop-up bubbles so that it's easier to read. But ninjacatbook.com, and just search Amazon, Ninja Cat Whiskers of Choice, or, search for Justin Donner, author. You can easily click through there to find it also.
Okay, and for everybody that's listening, you know there's always a page that goes with the podcast on Pet Life Radio. Go to Cattitude, or you can do a search on their homepage and look for this episode. We'll have a cool picture for you so you can see what the book likes. Perhaps you can see Justin and Donna and Justin and Corrigan too, and maybe Lando. And there'll be a link to his website as well. Alrighty, well, thank you so much, and talk to you when the next one comes out.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, what a fabulous show. I know I say that a lot, but I really enjoyed speaking with Justin Donner and talking about Ninja Cat, Whiskers of Choice. If you're a parent, this is a great book for your little ones. I would say maybe 10 to 15 would like this book, or any adults that like to draw. It's really a cool book. It's really great how we put everything together. And I would like to shout out to my thanks. First, thank you, Justin, for coming on Cattitude. Thanks to my guest. Thanks to my fur crew, which is Molly and Charlotte and Dennis and Jethro and Sammy and Jazz. You cats make me the cat lady, the cat lady of the internet. And thanks to everyone listening. Thank you so much for making Cattitude such a popular digital radio show on the internet. And especially thanks to my producer, Mark Winter, for making me and my guests sound wonderful. Now, keep listening. You never know what's going to be coming up on Cattitude. I'm trying to bring you the best all the time. If you have any suggestions, feel free to email me, Michelle, at PetLifeRadio.com.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.